My face was beet red and hot. Shame and embarrassment poured over me as I stood in front of this group of girls my age. My etiquette teacher had just told me that my little protruded belly on my 9-year-old body was wrong. Oh, and shortly after, Jeff, the boy who sat beside me in class, told me that Carla, the most popular girl in our grade, said I was the ugliest girl in grade 4. Oh, and then there was a time where I got 90% on my math test, and I was so excited to share it. And then I was met with, what happened to the other 10%? So, as you can see, these were some of my experiences growing up. Before all of this, I thought I was fabulous and talented and cute and carefree, until the outside world reflected differently to me. And at this young age, we're so susceptible and vulnerable to outside messages. And so I learned I was not skinny enough, pretty enough, and smart enough. And so to compensate, I became an overachiever, a perfectionist, and I developed type A personality. I was on a mission to prove that I was good enough. And then when I was 18, my then boyfriend was drooling over a life-size cardboard cutout of Britney Spears. But I felt so insecure about myself at this point and about how I looked that I felt like I did not measure up to this life-size cardboard cutout. And I know it sounds really ridiculous now, but at the time it was painfully devastating. And so I decided I'm going to go on a diet. And do you know what happens when you pair shame with dieting? It's a formula for an eating disorder. My preference? Binge eating. So I would restrict my calories, then gorge my face out, and then I would feel guilty. I would beat myself up for not having any willpower, and then I would punish myself with hours of cardio. Sound familiar to anyone? And this went on for years and years and years, until in 2008, I pushed my body to do a figure bodybuilding competition. So here I am in my perfect fitness model physique, doing my quarter turns in front of the judges on the stage, and I realized my life had become so rigid, so narrow, and so empty. In fact, I have never been so anxious in my life. I was constantly obsessed with food and constantly worried about my belly, although I had six-pack abs, not being flat enough. And this was a total reflection of my drive to be good enough so that I could have this happy and carefree life was a total fucking failure. Here I am, I've arrived. And life was not what I thought it would be. On the outside, I looked like I had my shit together. I looked like I was a confident, happy, and successful woman. I was a second-degree black belt in karate. I taught, and I was a role model to kids, teens, and adults. I was a newlywed with an amazing husband. He's still my husband. And I was a new therapist in a budding private practice. Yes, at this point, I was a psychologist. And despite all of this success, I was so unfulfilled, and I was crumbling inside. And so, shortly after this breakdown, I was introduced to learn about this powerful method called Haikomi. Haikomi, what it means, and it's a study of being in relationship with yourself and being in relationship with others, because we're always in these relationships. It's a powerful, life-transforming method that combines psychology, neuroscience, and spirituality. And of course, when you're learning something, you cannot not work on your own shit. So, I went from feeling not enough to knowing and claiming to my power to know I am enough as I am. It was incredible, and the changes I made and those of my clients that I went on to get certified in Haikomi. And shortly after, I got certified in eating psychology. And for the next 6.5 years, I worked with women, young girls, and men to empower them to love themselves, to love their bodies, and feel peace with food. And I was so touched by all these inner transformations that I was helping, supporting. And from this place of joy, of fulfillment, I asked myself, how else can I create more impact? And so in 2014, when I was on maternity leave with my second son, I decided to join a group coaching program for speakers to create more impact. Yes, I'm still an overachiever, but it doesn't come from a place of lack. It comes from this purpose, deep, deep fulfilled place of wanting to serve. And I was in this community of other business owners and coaches, and my mind was blown away with all these ideas of how I could start incorporating ideas into my business to create more impacts. And so this led me to become the first psychologist in Alberta to create an online program in food, body image, and self-love. And trust me, this was no easy feat, because there was a lot of red tape that I had to work through due to being a licensed therapist. It was really rewarding to see the impacts this created globally, but it was also really frustrating because I had to only operate in the confines of a licensed therapist. I was so inspired, and I was watching my coaching peers create such amazing impact and have a lifestyle of freedom in time, in money, in location. And this made me reflect on myself and my life and my career to go, is this how I want to continue? I felt limited. Yes, I was living a very comfortable life. Yes, I was well established as a go-to expert in my field now. And I really do love being a therapist. And I have a deep desire to travel more, to volunteer more. And being a mom of 2 young boys, I really wanted to spend more time with them. And because I've done so much work, I knew that my dreams, I was worthy of them, that this could be possible. I didn't know how, though. So 2 years ago, I manifested a business coach, the fabulous Odette Laurie. And together, she helps me create a self-love coaching business as a side hustle. And it was amazing in that I was realizing my passion started to shift towards working with women entrepreneurs to help them get out of their own way, out of self-doubt, out of self-sabotage, really lead their life and business from a place of self-worth. And this was so, so fulfilling. And from this place, I realized, wow, this is incredible. This is amazing. And I realized at some point, I couldn't keep being a registered psychologist. It was becoming too overwhelming, and it was becoming too confusing. But my inner critic came up loud, and I fought with it for months. I realized that a lot of my identity was actually wrapped up in my title of psychologist and another layer of self-worth. So I had to work through it, and I would hear things from my inner critic like, don't you think you're being selfish? Come on, like you're gonna be starting all over again. You already are well established. Do you really need to do this? Who's gonna come see you? You're not even covered under benefits anymore. Oh, and like, what will people think? Like, you work so hard to have this registration. And you are successful. You really need to think about this. I don't know if it's the best idea. And it goes on and on and on. So eventually, I surrendered. I stopped listening to my fears. I remembered, and I came home to myself, and I remembered, I'm worthy. My dreams are worthy. And from this place, I turned to my inner critic with love and with compassion. And I said, thank you. Thank you for keeping me safe. Thank you for protecting me. But I'm going to take it from here. I love myself. I know, I trust myself, and I have all the resources I need to succeed. Here's the thing. Our inner critic never goes away. After all, it was born out of survival. It's like this life jacket you put on when you were a young girl to help you survive, but now when you're older, it's not really going to fit anymore. And so it's really about learning how to tame your inner critic from a place of love and compassion. So for those of you who are struggling in your relationship with food, with body image or self-image, with setting boundaries, you're a people pleaser, perhaps your relationship with success, you find yourself self-sabotaging, I've got 3 pieces of wisdom for you. Number 1, food and body image are just doorways into deeper aspects of ourselves. It's our body, our inner Wonder Woman, trying to tell us something deeper. So, for example, oftentimes when I'm working with my clients, it might seem like this binge eating is just a surface piece. And so what's really going on is they may feel lonely in their relationship. They may be feeling resentful, maybe not getting paid what they're worth, or resentful in a relationship. Perhaps they're elevating in their business and they're shitting their pants. Or maybe they are newly back in the dating scene. And all of these are life transitions, and it asks us to bring in vulnerability. And let's face it, it's so much easier to turn to food to do all this work, right? So I invite you to go deeper and really listen to what your inner Wonder Woman is saying. Number 2, love yourself and love your whole body. If you find yourself picking apart certain body parts, ask yourself, what is the story I'm holding there? And then shift that story. So for me, I hated my belly for the longest time, for most of my life. As you can see earlier from my talk, that I started to own other people's stories as mine. And then society reinforces that you need to look a certain way in order to be lovable, valuable, and worthy. So as I did my own work, now I see my belly as a place of joy and abundance. It is the place of our intuition and our second brain. If you are familiar with the energy chakra systems, it's also the second chakra, which is all about self-worth and being comfortable with who you are, knowing the value of you. And it's also the home of where I had my babies. So I love my belly no matter what shape or size it is. And then number 3 is no one can ever tell you you are not enough unless you give them permission. So there's something called the law of mirrors. And what it says is what I see in you is just a reflection of me. And oftentimes this is unconscious. So if you fear rejection or you fear putting yourself out there and being judged, know that that person that's judging you is just projecting their crap onto you. So when I was struggling with body image and I went grocery shopping, I was hardcore checking out what people would be putting in their grocery carts and judging that, if it's good food, bad food. I was just sizing them up and down, silently, of course. But why was I doing that? Because my mindset I was going into a relationship with myself with hate of my body. And so now when I go grocery shopping, it's not even a thought. I'm minding my own business. I love smiling at people. So outer conflict doesn't start out there. It starts in here. Change your relationship with yourself. There's a quote I deeply live by and let it lead me by Marianne Williamson. You might be familiar to it, but from A Return to Love. Our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. Who are we to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are we not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve this world. And this has been a quote that I really love and embodied. And it's helped me take leaps of faith in my personal and professional life. In fact, I'm so excited to announce that on this coming Monday, I'm hosting the biggest event I've ever hosted in my career. And it's helping women entrepreneurs unleash their Wonder Woman. So if that resonates with you, I'd love for you to join me. And my wish for you is to know that you are worthy. Stop playing small. Embody your gifts and radiate your light and your gifts out to the world, because the world needs more of us. The world needs your light. You are lovable, you are worthy, and you are enough. Thank you very much.